Hello everyone, and welcome. I am going to walk us through some information and some practice today, and I'm really excited to share this with you. And I am going to do a screen share so you can kind of follow along with some words and my thought process while I'm demonstrating from the mat. Now, many of you are joining live. I can see you logging on. Hi, hello, hello. And we did actually just upgrade our account to fit more people. There were so many people registered, and I was not expecting that many folks. So we did just upgrade the account. Hopefully everybody can fit. If there's any trouble, just know you're gonna get the recording. So if you join in and you end up getting bounced off, know you're gonna get an email with the recording. And welcome to those of you that are watching live and to those of you that are watching the recording. So I'm gonna share my screen so you can walk through some of this with me. All right. My brain thinks in PowerPoint, so I've got some slides for you, and these will also be handy. I'll have them available for you to download too, so you can follow along with this after the fact. Now, let's see if this will go. It's a little slow, and I know the internet has been overwhelmed for the last few weeks and months, so I'm going to try to speak slow and smooth as much as I can, so that if there's any hiccups on, in the cloud, on my end or on your end or anywhere, you can still catch what I'm saying. Okay, so this is 3 ways to use body and breath to cope during crisis, and we are all definitely facing a global crisis, right? My name is Lisa Danilchuk. For those of you I don't know, welcome, and it's wonderful to have you here. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist and an experienced registered yoga teacher. So that's what those letters stand for. And in case you lost track of it, today's Tuesday, in the States at least, April 14th, 2020. Good to check back in with that sometimes. So I'm going to offer some tools to prepare before we go into these 3 ways you can use your body and breath to regulate during crisis. The first thing that is really helpful to do, whether or not you've got trauma that's triggered or wow, okay. So the first thing you can do is to connect with your environment. All right, so I'm going to share that again here. Now, one example I love of this is an art assignment for art students. Some of you might have been art students. You might have had this assignment yourself. And the assignment is to go to a sculpture or a painting or some work of art, some museum, and sit in front of the same work for hours. And the purpose of this assignment is that as the student is observing this singular piece of art, they'll start to notice more details, more subtlety. And so many of us right now, we are being asked to stay in our homes, and others of us are staying long hours in our work environment. So how can we use that to our advantage and in a way that's really trauma informed? We can pay attention to our environment. We can seek to learn more, get more familiar and more intimate with our external environment. Now, internally, this is probably happening too, right? The emotions come up, whether it's a trigger or a memory or a sensation, like stuff is there. And when that's true and when the internal is overwhelming, one great thing to do is to focus more on something tangible outside, right? So connecting to your environment, you can think of your space as a work of art in and of its own right, whether it's work or home, and start to just notice the subtleties. So with that, one thing that can be really helpful, and this is a yoga strategy, is to choose a drishti or gazing point, right? So right now, Himalayan pink salt lamp on my desk. For me, that's sort of a little bit positive, right? But choose something neutral or positive where you can rest your eyes. It might be green tree outside, right? And just keep coming back to that same thing as many times as you can remember. Now, this is also a biofeedback technique. Okay, so the biofeedback technique is to put a little sticker somewhere, maybe on your computer, on your notebook. Every time you see it, take a breath, a little shoulder roll, a little shake, right? So you're actually kind of checking in with how your body's doing. So I'm giving a lot of examples, but you can choose one thing. I'm going to go with the green treetop. And every time I see that, I'm just going to take a moment, connecting to my environment, and a little soft reset there, okay? This one, if you need more, I love it. It's almost like a game, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So if your brain's really busy, if you're feeling sort of anxious or your brain's full and you're like, I can't, the green tree doesn't do it for me, my brain goes a mile a minute. Try to find 5 things you can see, 4 you can touch, 3 you can hear, 2 you can smell, and 1 that you can taste, okay? So that's connecting to your environment. Sometimes we call this orienting, right? Orienting to the room, feeling the floor, feeling what's happening, seeing it. Now, a specific way to orient is through grounding, all right? Now, I like to earth, which is when you can actually put your hands, your feet, your body on the grass, in the dirt. Some of us have access to that in a yard or something like that. Some of us don't right now. If you have that, you could try. And if it's new to you, you know, most of us have walked on the earth at some point with bare feet. You could try and see the effect it has on your body. The concept behind earthing versus grounding, it's a little bit like you go to the ocean and there's that negative ion, there's an ion exchange between our bodies. The concept behind earthing is that there's actually an ion exchange through your feet. So give it a try and see how it feels for you. All right, now if that's not possible, you can still ground. You can use any area of your body to connect with the floor and what's beneath you. So feet is really common, right? Sit bones are really common. You can also use your hands. It could be on the floor or even on the tops of your thighs, right? You can press your hands into each other and even feel a little bit more grounded there. And in yoga, we find ways to ground through everything, right? Your abdomen, your hands, your legs, your sit bones, your head even. I wouldn't recommend headstand unless it's something you've been taught and practiced. It's a very vulnerable position for your neck, but even in downward dog with your head supported on a block, you could be grounding through, you know, the crown or the hairline. So lots of creative ways to ground. It doesn't always have to be through your feet. I have known people who feet feels triggering for any reason, so you can always find something else, okay? So that's the first things first, and I'm going to encourage you to use those strategies during this webinar. We've just got 25 minutes together from now. If something is like, oh, this isn't working for me, or oh, this feels upsetting, please come back to green treetop, your environment, your point of grounding. So the first way to cope using your body during a crisis is movement. And I am going to offer a number of ways to do that that are yoga based, but really anything, right? You might just shake. There's like improv exercises where you just shake this arm, shake that leg, shake that leg. Try that now, right? You could also walk. Many people are going on walks if that's possible. All right, you could try jumping jacks. You could try marching in place, and you could even do like a little cross curl where you're doing opposite arm and leg, and that's meant to help with right and left brain integration. Okay, so many of us are on the computer more. We're all on the computer right now, right? And in between those moments on the computer, you might just want to get even silly or playful and literally shake it up for yourself, okay? So movement, very healing. I'm going to go pause this screen share and go back to my mat so you can see. And I'm going to walk through these 3 yoga shapes. Now there's a particular reason why I chose these and why we're doing them in this order. And I'll try to speak to that as much as I can for today, okay? So let's see, pause the share. All right, and then we go to our mat. I'm gonna start with CatCow, okay? So this is familiar for some of you, new for others. In CatCow, pretty much knees, hips distance, hands, shoulders distance. You can even go a little wider with your hands. Shoulders over wrists, hips over knees, just kind of stacking your joints safely. Now the first movement we tend to do in CatCow is to stretch the front of the torso and look a little bit forward and up. This is the cow. And then we exhale around and stretch the back of the body, drop the head. That's the cat. So if you're with me, I know you might be in an environment where you can do this, maybe where you are working and you're just taking notes for later, but you can try it if it's available right now. And just arch and round. Many of you have practiced this before, but particularly notice here how the stretch through the front of the body tends to be a little more energizing or invigorating. The stretch through the back of the body, a little bit like you're curling up with yourself, can be a little more centering, perhaps a little more soothing to shake your head. So the reason we've chosen this one first is that it's giving you a little bit of both. So in those moments where you're like, I don't even know how I feel right now, helpful to go to something that feels a little bit balancing, right? Maybe a little bit of energizing and a little bit of soothing. So you can connect that CatCow with your breath, inhaling as you arch, exhaling as you round, all right? Now the next shape is something soothing. So we go into from CatCow into child's pose. Now I'm gonna show a variation that gives some extra support. So I'm gonna use a block. And I've got this nice little sack of potatoes that I'll put behind. You can use a blanket, a towel, right? Get creative, anything you have in your environment. I really like, for my child's pose, my knees a little wider than hips distance. That tends to feel a little more open for me. If you want a little more containment, it feels better for your body, a little more support for your back, knees together, okay? So child's pose, we just walk forward. Ooh, you know, the bolster would be really nice here. You can rest your head on a block, or since I'm seeing it, oh, there it is. You might not get me out of this. The rest of our presentation will be from supported child's pose. Now, this tends to be a little more soothing, especially when you have pillows under your body. There's that contact with the front central line. Now, if you have your head like this, you might want to turn the other way, right? But just to be fair, since not everyone has that bolster in front, I'll demonstrate with the block. You could also have your head on the block. If you've done this a million times and you feel like, oh, I don't want those supports, those feel like they're in the way, then just get them out of the way. And rest here. So a few more moments if you'd like to stay there. I'm gonna get up and just say a couple things. In child's pose, many of us will have the forehead skin kind of pulled up and back, right? Tends to be a little more soothing for most bodies if the skin's drawing down, right? This is more of like a surprised face. This is more of a relaxed face. So notice even those subtleties in terms of how they impact your body. The other thing I'll say is some people just don't like to not be able to see the room. So there are other forward bends you can find, and I've got demonstrations of those out online. I can send you some resources, okay? So CatCow, balancing, child's pose, soothing. Now we're gonna move into the energizing variation, which is Cobra, and what I like to call superhuman, okay? So if you've got stuff on your mat, go ahead and clear it off to the side. And you know, you don't even need a mat. You could be on your carpet or on a towel or whatever works where you are. I'm just gonna lower all the way down. I will say if you're on something hard, like a hardwood floor or a yoga mat, you might wanna put a blanket down and then just lower. Okay, so for Cobra pose, we take our hands back by our ribs, keep the legs and feet pressing down, and use an inhale to lift up and an exhale to lower down. It's a little bit easier to go dynamic first. Dynamic just meaning we're moving with our breath, coming in and out of the shape. Now, if you want to stay in hold, it's some work for the upper back, right? You're feeling it. Squeezing the shoulder blades together, drawing your shoulder blades in towards your chest. This is opening the front of the chest and what some of my teachers like to call the armpit chest, right? One of my teachers likes to say full moons in the armpit chest. So if that works for you, use it. I really like it. And you can hang out here until you start to feel your cheeks getting rosy, like I can feel mine. And then rest and take a breath. So if you like cobra, stick with that. If you want another option, superhuman, reach the arms forward. There's lots of variation. One arm, one leg, just legs, just arms. I'm gonna go straight for flying through the air. Both arms, both legs, okay? Now with all of these back bends, it's really common to bend from your neck and your low back. Try to move more into the middle and the upper back. Let your head and your neck stay soft. And rest when you're ready. All right, so that's your cobra and superhuman, okay? So just to reiterate, I'm gonna go back to our screen share. Cat-cow balancing, child's pose soothing, cobra superhuman, a little more energizing. Now, if you wanna make this a little more challenging, you could change this into like a traditional vinyasa, right? Plank, lower down, cobra up dog, downward dog. I'm not gonna demonstrate all of those just for time's sake, but the most important thing is to do something that feels like it meets your body and your internal state where it is and brings it a little more into equilibrium, okay? So choose what you need, more soothing, more energizing, or both. And the vinyasa is both, right? You've been doing vinyasas forever. You might want to get creative and modify, throw some sphinx pose in there, do some reverse right back up to plank, right? So you're not just doing the same repetitions over and over again. But particularly if it's new or if you haven't done them for a while, you know, vinyasa is also a kriya for immunity in the Kundalini tradition. So maybe it's the movement through around the lymph nodes, right, in our neck, our armpits and groin, that helps to pump lymph through. And from that perspective and from this energetic perspective in Kundalini, this is something that helps build our immunity. We can also pair breath with movement, right? So you can use your inhale and your exhale to guide you through, okay? I will just say, before I move on from here, the cobra up dog is definitely more energizing, the downward dog more balancing, and lying on your floor on your abdomen tends to be more soothing. So you can work all of that into this traditional vinyasa too. So the next way to cope, the next thing you can do within your environment and everything that's going on right now is actively choose and invite stillness. Now we are all on a grand scale actively choosing stillness right now. We're choosing to stay home or to only go to work if it's absolutely necessary, right? So we're already in this place of stillness. Within that, I'd encourage you to choose anything that feels restful, okay? So Savasana, from a yoga standpoint, is the rest that we do at the end of every single practice, ideally, yeah? And there are a number of ways to practice Savasana to respond to how you are feeling. So a face down Savasana, not as common, tends to be really soothing. If you're feeling overactivated, having a hard time transitioning from work to rest, if you're having a hard time sleeping or feeling really anxious, you could try this face down Shavasana. I'm going to demonstrate in a moment, okay? You could also try a bolster under your chest. That also gives support to the lungs, very relevant right now, and tends to be a little more energizing if you're feeling heavy, if you're feeling the grief or the sadness of the unknown or the change, right? Also super common for folks to have low back pain in this culture in general. And when we're sitting, if you're at the computer more these days, finding some support under your knees can be helpful. Okay, so I'll demonstrate all of these. The last thing I'll show is just a seated meditation. Okay, so face down Shavasana, kind of like supported child's pose on the bolster. You might not get me out of this one. So you could do child's pose again, or you could come all the way down so that the whole of your torso is supported on some pillows or blankets. Got your head to one side and just rest here. Remember, this is a shape that tends to be helpful if you're feeling anxious or overactivated, overstimulated. And the nice thing about a shape like this is you can hold it for a few minutes, however long you like. Might even fall asleep here. Same thing I said in child's pose, you can turn your head, right? So that you get equal stretch in your neck. So if you love it there, you can stay there. Next option will be to take the bolster under our upper backs. So we sit just a couple inches in front and lie back. You might want a little extra blanket or pillow for your head. I'm just gonna get my hair clip out of the way. And for some of us, this will be a really big stretch in the armpit chest, right? Or in your chest. But this tends to support the lungs, prepare for breath work or pranayama. Also a little more of an energizing effect while you're still in stillness and Shavasana. And I do want to say, this is invited stillness. So it's not that you feel like you have to be in Shavasana and you can't move, or that moving is wrong or bad. Like, it might take a little while to settle in, and I actually encourage you to allow for some of that settling to happen and welcome it. If your body's switching around, totally normal, totally fine. Okay, now if you're happy there, you can stay there. I'm just going to show one more variation, which is the bolster under the knees. All right, so this looks like this. This one's really good for tension in the low back, right, which most of us have at some point in our lives or in our day. So ideally, you're finding a point of stillness that feels good to you. And those are three options. Now, if that stillness feels like, I don't know, too much floor, you could try a seated meditation. I'm not going to go through all the million ways to meditate here, but like I said earlier, picking something, the green tree, you can practice meditation with eyes open, that single pointed focus. Every time your mind wanders, you just come back to the image, perhaps saying the word to yourself. And this will transition us into our next point, but a lot of meditation is instructed around observing the breath. Like I said earlier, that could be too much, especially with all the associations we have with lungs and breathing right now. You might just want to focus more external for these meditations. But if it's comfortable, you can do a breath-focused meditation, just noticing your inhale, noticing your exhale. Okay, so movement and stillness. And we've got one more thing. Okay, I'm going to resume our share so you can see my slides. And we can talk about breath. The first thing I would encourage is just a super easy, soft breath, okay? I've noticed when there's a crisis in the world, often when I first see or hear it, I might feel a little tightness in my chest or in my gut around it, right? Now, I could react to that with like, oh, there's tightness, and then clench and have more tightness. But what I've learned to do, and what's helpful for me, is to notice the tension and try to create an environment of ease around it. So if there's any kind of hard edges on your breath, most of the time, for most of us, there are, right? And usually that's we're running place to place, Now that might be different, but try to just find some ease, a little more softness. Something I learned really early on from one of the founders of Yoga Works, Mati Ezrati, and from also Iyengar teachers, Patricia Walden, Lisa Walford, is it's quality over quantity with breath work, okay? So one quality breath is like gold, okay? So if you're doing a pranayama practice, a breathing practice right now, try to look for that quality and cultivate that rather than saying, oh, I'm going to do 10. I've got to do 10. A little more of the being energy with your breath versus doing. Now, like we did with posture, there are ways to stimulate or soothe your nervous system, to energize or soothe using elongated inhales or exhales. So if you're feeling heavy, you're feeling at one with the couch, right, or grief, focusing on the inhale and that lift of your chest, even if it's comfortable, tolerable, holding for a moment at the top of your breath, and then letting out a smooth exhale, that can be really helpful. You might add a count to it, inhaling for 4, exhaling for 3, for example. Now the reverse, if you're feeling more anxious, more movement, agitated, things like that, longer exhale can be more helpful. So you can even try this now as I'm talking. You might inhale for 3 and exhale for 4. Now I know some of you are at home with your kids too, so some great ones for this. Inhale, smell the flowers, springtime here in the States. Or exhale, blow out the birthday candles. Okay? And I know some people, myself included, have had shelter-in-place birthdays, and that can be hard, but hopefully it's not cueing into a trauma by blowing out the birthday candles, right? So you find these examples that have a visceral response, especially with kids. Inhaling, breathe in the flowers. Exhale, blow out the candles, and focus on whichever one, the inhale for the energizing, the exhale for the soothing, that you feel like you need right now, okay? Now there are some structured yoga ways to do this. Nadi Shodhana is alternate nostril breathing. Plenty of tutorials out there online. I really recommend Nikki Estrada Yoga. She has a whole online library. I think on howwecanheal.com, we put her code up for a free month of that too, so you can access that there. Nadi Shodhana is inhaling through one nostril, exhaling through the other, and then switching, right? So if I were doing a full cycle, I would inhale right, exhale left, inhale left, exhale right, okay? So you always start and end in the same place, kind of going back and forth between your nostrils. Nadi Shodhana is a great balancing breath. So if this is familiar, I'd encourage a few quality breaths of Nadi Shodhana. If it's new, find a tutorial, try even just one cycle. And with this breath, you can focus on the Surya, the sun aspect, or the Chandra, the moon aspect. Okay, so these are just variations on Nadi Shodhana. In the Surya, the energizing, the heating breath, we inhale right, exhale left every time. This is a good one for the morning. Inhale right, exhale left. You can even use your hand and try it with me. Any fingers you need, there's a fancy way, but you can just use your first finger and thumb. Inhale right, and exhale left. Chandra Vedana, just the reverse. You inhale left, exhale right, inhale left, exhale right. This is a good one to do at night. Inhale left and exhale right. Okay, so this is meant to have a cooling, soothing effect on our energetic system. Good to do if you're having a hard time sleeping, if you're feeling anxious, any of those things. All right. So we have walked through really a ton of different ways to cope, as much as I could pack in today without hopefully overwhelming you. The first one, steady your environment, orient to your environment, ground to the earth, to your space, in your body. And then the three things are choosing movement, right? Finding your choice of movement, finding your choice of stillness, and making some choices with your breath patterns, all right? Now coming up, we've got a couple more webinars specifically for people who are doing trauma-informed yoga classes online. I know many of you are yoga teachers and you are hosting those. So next week's webinar is about that. I'll send all these links out the week after. Tools you can use, those of you in mental health and online health providers, some tools you can use with your clients and patients. That's April 28th. We also have an 8-week online training program beginning May 4th. If you want to know all the whys behind what I'm sharing here, you can go to howwecanheal.com and there's an application process there. Lots of information there. I can't close without encouraging you to watch cute animal videos. Now, there's a reason, there's a biological reason behind this. So if you're like, I don't know why I'm stuck on YouTube watching cute animal videos, I want to encourage you to not feel guilty about that, right? Of course, if you're ignoring the people you live with, that might be a relational issue. But there's great biological reason, especially if you're living alone or you don't have any pets, to engage with that, right? Watch the lions grooming each other or baby goats, whatever it is that speaks to you. I'd encourage you to use that resource to help regulate. There's a deep reason why that can be soothing. And I have to send some of my animals' love to you. This is Iris. She's become a part of pretty much everything I teach these days. Iris sends her love your way. She's really sad that we're not out walking right now, but she'll get her walk. Okay, so I want to thank each of you for your time and for your attention, and please share this. Please share this recording, share this information, teach it to your kids, practice with each other. And I really, from deep within my heart, just want to wish you well, wish you health, wish you peace, wish you ease as we kind of move forward with all of this and transition into probably a new way of all living and relating together. So thanks for being here, and from my heart to yours, a deep namaste. All right. Bye, everybody.